then how could we tackle that? So let's go here. I'll just do 3 numbers, right? I mean, we'll in the code we'll go 10 deep, but here we'll just do 3. So we'll go like this. So we want to start at 1, and we want to do like rows 0, 1, 2, column 0, 1, 2, and then we want to do 1 times 1. This is 0, right? So we have to add 1 to it. So we'll say 1 times 1, 1. This one's 0, so we do 0 plus 1, 1. 1 plus 1, 2. So 1 times 2, 2. This is 0, so again we have to add 1. So behind the scenes with code we'll do that. 1, and then we have 2, so 2 plus 1, 3. 0 plus 1, 1. 1 times 3, 3. And then over here we do the same addition, but we'll end up with 2, 4, 6, and then here we'll do 3, right? 3 times 1, so 3, 6, 9, right? So we need to do this, right? So what was happening, right? So we can go by row, right? So the row can be 1 loop, right? So the row loop, and the value of R is 0, but we add 1 to it, so row is 1, right? So row is 1. So then here we can say like R times the value of column, right? Oh, actually not here. We do the column loop. And then column will always go 0, 1, 2 index-wise. I'll explain what that means, right? So we have R equals 0 plus 1, so that's 1. So then we're like, okay, I want to do R times, we'll say column C, but what is the value of C? So here we have 0, 1, 2. Up here we have 0, 1, 2. These are index values. Always with loops in programming, we start with 0, okay? So that's why we add 1 here, because we're starting at 0, but I want this output, so I have to do row has to be 1, and this has to be 1. So meaning, I have to do column plus 1. So then if row is 1, and then we do times, and 0 plus 1, 1, right, on the first loop. And then it loops again and stays in the column loop, so then row is still 1. And now column is 1, so we do 1 plus 1, so 2, right? So 1 times 1 is this one. 1 times 2 is this one. And then we'll do row 1 times 2 plus 1, 3. So 1 times 3 is this one. So what we can see is that the outer loop, this one's the outer loop, you'll see with code. The outer loop executes 1 time. And this one executes 3 times. For 1 row. So that means if we go to the second row, then this one will execute only 1 time, but this one 3 times, right? So then if we go to the third loop, then this one will still only loop 1 time, the outer loop, but the inner loop always executes 3 times. So then the outer loop always executes n times its index, right? So let me explain that. So if row is 3 and this is 3, so 3 times 3, so the total iterations will be 9 for the inner loop, but this one will be 3, right? So this is how you can see it. So first loop, you only loop 1 row loop, but you column loop, which is this one, let me change colors. You loop 1, oops, wrong color. You loop 1 time, 2 times, 3 times, so that's 3. And then on the second row, this is the second loop for row, but this one will loop 1, 2, 3, so 3 times. And then the third one for row This one still does 1, 2, 3 for column loop, so 3. So that's how we get 9. Oops, what happened here? Let me close this. 9 for inner, 3 for outer, okay? That's just the explanation. So now we have to write code to produce this table, multiplication table. We'll do it from 1 through 10, so that way we get the multiplication table as we were taught. Okay, so let me go to the code. We have time, yeah. And let's go ahead and do that one. So I think the explanation is probably more complicated than the loop, right? So here we'll say like def let's see let me see here. Before we do the multiplication loop, maybe we do a loop that shows you what I just told you, that the outer loop loops 1 time, the inner loop loops 3 times, so that you can see it in action. So this is what we'll do. We'll say nested while loop. And we accept row and column from the outside. Let me correct the spelling here. And then what we'll simply do is we'll be like, okay, I equals 0. And then we'll say while I less than row, then let's print some values. We'll print what I is, and we'll say I, and then we'll say value, and then what loop is it? Here we'll say outer loop. Wait for inner loop. And now we need an inner loop, so we'll say while I plus equal 1, add 1, right, to make this condition false eventually. And then we set row equal to 0. So we're like, okay, row equals 0. Maybe not row j. So then we say, okay, while j less than the value of column. And then we say, okay, we want to print some values. Print j, value of j, and then we do \t for tab, and then we say inner loop, make outer loop wait. Let me make sure I have double quote here too. Okay, so what we should see is outer loop, and then inner loop, inner loop, inner loop. However many times column is. Okay, we're going to do 3 by 3 because that's the explanation I gave you. So let's go back here and let's go to repetition dot, and we'll say nested while loop, and we'll do 3 by 3. So 3 by 3. And let me clear this. Clear. And we go here. And I didn't provide an incrementer for the second loop, right? Because I was in a hurry. I don't know why my mouse does that sometimes. Let me go here. Do that. So on the J piece, I didn't do J plus equals 1. So that's why I went into an infinite loop. Mainly because I was looking at the time and I wanted to finish the example quickly. Okay. Okay, So this is what I was talking about here. I need to make j less than column false eventually, so I need j plus equal 1 here. Okay, so now I go back and we can run the main program. So we jump to main and let's go run it. And let's go here. So notice outer loop, wait for inner loop, and then it has to wait 1, 2, 3 times. And then the outer loop starts looping again. But then immediately the inner loop takes control again. Inner loop, right here. And then outer loop again for the third iteration. But then 1, 2, 3, right? So 3 times 3, 9. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. So 9 times the inner loop executed while the outer loop only looped 3 times, right? So knowing that, now we can tackle that multiplication loop. So how do we tackle that one? Well, more or less the same way. We have to understand that if row is 0, column's going to loop from 0 through 9. So then we just need to do like some basic add 1 and then multiply row columns so that we can get the desired values 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, and then 2, 4, 3, 6, 4, 8, 5, 10. You got the picture, right? So let's go here and let's do the multiplication. So def while multiplication table, and we'll ask for input row columns, right? So we'll ask the user for that, and then we can tackle it. Again, the explanation I think was long-winded, but the code is actually easy. So we go here and we're like, okay, let's do I equals 0, maybe row, right? So row equals 0, and then we're like, okay, while row less than row, r less than row. And then we're like, okay, set column equal 0, c equals 0, and then we say while c less than column, do something. Okay, so what do? We collect values. We're like, okay, get the product to row plus 1. Why 1? Because we're starting at 0, right? But we don't care about 0. We want to start at 1. So r plus 1 times c plus 1. We have that. Then we can do some printing. We say print product. And this is like some syntax to make a pretty table. 3 space and then end equal. Okay, so this will make sure that we get a nice output for table. We have to remember to do c plus equal 1 here. Make sure that we don't run into an infinite loop. And we have to do the same thing for j plus equal 1, so that it increments not j but r, sorry, r, the row. That way we don't run into an infinite loop. And then we're like print a space. So row is 0. Let's do for 3, right? Row is 0. Okay, well, row is 3. Well, 0 less than 3, yes. C equals 0, okay. Is 0 less than 3, yes. Okay, what's the product? R, 0 plus 1, 1 times the current value of C, 0 plus 1, 1. Okay, we stay in this loop here. C is 2. R is still 0, so 0 plus 1, 1 times 1 plus 1, 2. Loops again. Now the value of C is 2. R plus 1, so 0 plus 1, 1. C is 2 plus 1, 3. 3 times 1, 3. And then we jump to the outer loop, so increment R by 1, so R is now 1. So we will come here, 1 plus 1, 2, times the current value of C, 0 plus 1, So 2 times 1, 2. Loop around. Now this is 1. 1 plus 1, 2. This is still 2. 2 times 4, 4, right? So we will get 2, 4, 6. Let's see if we get the correct output. So we come up here, and I will comment that piece out, repetition, and then we'll say while multiplication table, and let's do 10 by 10. So we'll do 10 by 10, and let's clear this so we can see output. I think that should be sufficient. So let's run it. And then we get the multiplication table as we've known since grade school, right? So I think my opinion was back in the day that like the explanations were always like kind of hard to understand for me. But then once I would go through the code, I understand it more. Doesn't mean that that's going to work for you, right? But this is an example that I would definitely go back and go line by line to make sure I understand what's going on. Okay, questions here? Let me while multiplication we'll tackle the multiplication table with and the nested loops with for loop in the next lecture. Okay, so today don't go again, this mouse is very sensitive sometimes. In about a minute or so you'll have an assignment, and that assignment has questions. Make sure I mean, it's an assignment, it's like 10%, right? But make sure you read the questions carefully, take your time, get them right, and then you'll have a second chance in the next lecture with those questions, but in the quiz, right? So please make sure that you remember that. I do that because it's more important for me that you understand the concepts, right? So, I mean, you see them, and then it's kind of like a low stakes grade, and then you prepare for the higher stakes grade, which is the quiz on the next lecture, which should be a little bit more challenging. Let me, still scanning folders.
I'm sorry, did you say this was due tonight?
Assignments are always due in class, yes. It should be up at 8:45, so if you don't see it on the calendar, then you can refresh the calendar. It'll eventually be there. So let me commit this before I forget. Let me stop this.